Please welcome Joss Whedon and Elizabeth Olsen. Should we all do musical chairs?
I just feel like he's gonna be talking more, so I feel like he should be in the middle.
No, I'm gonna
Because I'm gonna divert every question to him.
And you just you take all the stuff. What's the movie about?
I have no idea.
When you first started writing it, how did you?
I'm done here. You can handle this, Joss. You got it.
No, I'm totally
You fit?
good.
Okay, good.
How did you juggle all those characters?
Yeah.
Have you seen my question list? This is ridiculous. This is pretty much everything. But I will start with you, Joss, actually. This is obviously Age of Ultron, and this was a character in the villain that you wanted to use right back in the day. Pretty much the first conversation you had with Kevin Feige over at Marvel. What is it about Ultron that made you go, yes, that's the guy?
Well, actually, he was really just a means to an end. When I first talked about him, I was like, you've got to have Ultron. If you do this movie and then there's a second one, you got to have Ultron in the second one, and then he's building an android, and then they put Jarvis on, and it's Vision. Because then Paul Bettany could play the Vision, which he was born to do. And I was obsessed with that idea. And then 3 years later, I got to call Paul and say, listen, can you do me a favor? But Ultron is just, you know, the first one, Loki he's fairly badass, but you know, he's a thinker, he's a talker. You know, he's a god, so he's got some strength, but he's not, you know, I needed somebody who could take on every Avenger. And Ultron's been taking them on for decades. He hates them. And that was the other thing. It's like, he's been mad. He's been making, like, scowly face for 5 decades. It's time for sure. That's Ultron storing nuts for the winter. And I just thought, well, there's that much anger becomes interesting to me, because at some point it's crazy. And that sort of led me down the path to who he was.
But was it tricky to write in the end? Because it's one thing going into a meeting and going, in 3 years' time, let's do Ultron, he'll be great. But when you sit down to write him, was it more difficult than perhaps you envisaged?
Yeah, it was very difficult, actually. And he's somebody that I was rewriting constantly, because you're creating from whole cloth, because he doesn't really have a voice in the comics besides grrr. Which I'm good at writing. I can write grrr. But it was the arg I couldn't find. I found his voice, and instantly, like, as soon as I thought of Spader, I refound his voice, because I'm like, oh, he could do it. But because he knows so much and has so much to be angry about and so much context, you know, you could just draw from anything, and so it was very hard to figure out, well, what is we actually going to keep? What lands? What actually, you know, moves it forward and isn't just, oh, he's completely crazy. And James himself was like, this is hard for me because I'm reacting to things that often aren't actually happening. Like,
yeah, I mean, I can agree with that, because I had to react to a lot of things that weren't happening. But with
no, but I mean, emotionally in the middle of a sentence.
Yeah, I was
he would
actually
just sort of
curious
shift.
with him. You also wrote him to be kind of naive, as well as like the smartest thing on the planet. And I thought that, I find that to be very interesting, and that's where a lot of humor is, when he becomes like this weird child.
Yes, yeah, well, he's kind of OCD,
yeah,
a little persnickety, and it was fun to write a robot who was like the least robot-y robot ever. And I also found that so many things changed, but the first thing I did, I was writing memos. I write a lot of memos, and I wrote a monologue for him just to give to James, like, this is how he sees the team. And none of that was meant to be in the thing. And I wrote a memo, and while I was writing it, I was like, you know, because it's the father-son thing, I was like, it's sort of interesting. Now that I think of it, it was sort of like, you know, every child kills their parent. Because when you have a child, you get it. You go, oh, it's not about me. And that's part of the cycle that leads you towards the acceptance of death. And then I wrote don't worry, this will never appear in the film. And it's in his first scene with you, when he's like, we have smaller people, children.
Yeah.
Design. I mean, he basically does end up saying that. So it's sort of like, I had to sort of search far and wide to figure out what he would be saying, but at the same, what he would be on about. But at the same time, it was kind of the first stuff I'd thought of.
And as Ultron, you've got James Spader in a mocap outfit,
Yeah.
which Elizabeth, you had to act opposite quite a lot.
Yes,
What was that
a lot.
experience like?
While
for you?
looking 2 feet above his head.
Yeah, it was the thing that was frustrating about it is James Spader is one of the most dynamic actors, and Aaron and I, when we would have scenes with him, a lot of times we were able to rise him on a platform so we could actually be face to face with him, and he could still be justified being, 10 feet tall?
8, just 8 and a
feet,
half.
sorry, 8.5 feet tall.
10 in heels.
10 in robot heels. And so Aaron and I would have such a hard time him doing this amazing performance, and we had to look at these 2 red lights that were above his head, and we're going like this the whole time, just being like, but I want to watch Spader. There are a lot of things to making these kind of films where, as an actor, you just have to acquire new skills, and that was what's a fun challenge about this, because it's difficult on a whole new level and challenging on a whole different level than doing a smaller character piece. I mean, this is a character piece, so I hate using that word, but yeah.
Yeah. But so on Godzilla, for example, it wasn't some guy with an eye line 200 feet above his head. It was...
No, it was just a building.
It was
like,
a screen.
It was just like a window, and I imagined there to be a sniper instead of a monster that looked like Godzilla. I was like, that would scare me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They should just get a sniper.
Yeah, well, that would be safe.
That's maybe not do that. So let's talk about who you play in the movie.
Yes.
You play Wanda Maximoff, a.k.a. Scarlet Witch.
Yes.
Who is she?
She's a twin from Sokovia. The last Quicksilver, Pietro, is her twin brother. Last time we see the twins is at the end of Cap 2, and they've participated for Hydra human experimentation, and they're the only 2 who survive it. They're very angry. They've lost their parents, and they blame Tony Stark for that. And that is why they volunteered to be able to avenge their parents' death, basically.
And they bring a different flavor
Yeah.
to this universe, don't they?
Yeah, I think what was really clever, what Joss did, is he introduced these characters where our powers could literally change the direction of the film, because I have the ability of mind manipulation. I get to mess with them, and then it leads the Avengers into a whole new place that maybe as an audience you don't expect them going to, and through that we get to discover a lot more about these characters and their fears and their desires and their wants as people, not as heroes. And some of the most beautiful work comes within that moment, and also the characters that don't have franchises that we love so much, we get to learn so much more about in this film. And they really have such amazing stories.
And Joss, did you sit down to do the same for Wanda and Pietro as you did for Ultron, writing a one-page memo or a speech to get into their
Wanda
heads?
and Pietro are better established in the comics than Ultron was, so they seem to make more sense to me. I think the biggest change from the first draft was that I took out all the sort of pidgin English, not quite as
Yes.
good. And with
Our
Elliot.
broken English was
And-
stopping broken.
and they were like, "Don't do that. Let us do that." I was like, "Okay, that's fair. We sound like idiots." But it's always that thing of like, we live in faraway land and speak English always.
Even with each other.
Yes, which you just sort of have to lean into. You just have to live with it. But for me, I mean, Pietro's easy. He's a hothead. It's not that got when you see the DVD extras. I think I mentioned this to you earlier. He's a bit of a coxswain. I'm not sure how to say this delicately, but
a swordsman, if you will.
The ladies.
Yeah.
He's kind of arrogant and fun. Wanda is, my biggest thing with Wanda was to make sure that she was sort of the grounded, stable, kind of really political, sort of grown-up in the relationship. And partially because you need that, and partially because I didn't want to fall into a Simon and River situation from my earlier work.
And Elizabeth, how did you get into Wanda's head? I mean, there's not a lot of genetically enhanced people out there for you to do research with.
I mean, it starts with, because I understand that there's a huge fan group out there for her character, even though she's not in a film.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I know. I saw you yesterday. I've talked about you in interviews all day today because you made my day.
I think it's just been reciprocated.
Yeah, that's so cool. I've never seen someone like dressed up as me in a movie, so it's really exciting for me. But I don't remember what I was saying now. I just got so vain. Yeah. Getting into Wanda's head. What was the thought process I was just going on, though? Sorry. Yeah, so you start off with the comics, and because the first time we got the job, there was no script. It was a dialogue with Joss, and we knew the arc, we knew where we were going. We knew how we were dealing with, like, the detail of Magneto or whatever. It's easy to throw that away when you can, because they didn't know until later, anyway. And it's also, we're enhanced by Hydra, so all that is accepted. And then you go into the comic books, and you see where she goes and where the comics have led her, and you kind of backtrack and try to think of what would lead to such madness in a way. And that's how I started, was by going to where her extreme was and trying to backtrack.
And Joss, was it always the case of for the sequel you wanted, not obviously Ultron, but Wanda, Pietro, Vision right from the off?
Yeah, I mean, Ultron and Vision was an easy sale. Wanda and Pietro, there was a lot of doubt, like, can we sustain this many characters? They don't seem connected. I was like, I will connect them. I need them. They were a part of the Avengers from, before I was reading it. They're in the DNA. And I knew that they would give me so many opportunities to hear a different voice, a different perspective, literally a different accent, but also visually to give us a new vernacular, that their powers, they represent the idea that we come into the movie and it's a different world. Like, there's all this weaponry out there, there's all this knowledge, everybody knows there's heroes, everybody knows there's aliens, and Cap makes a comment about all the new players that they've faced. I don't know who those were, but
it's nice to speculate.
Yeah, but the idea is, things are getting weirder, and now the guys who were the Ubermensch, the cutting edge of, like, awesomeness, are suddenly kind of the old guys, and they're like, well, people are younger and have powers that we can't even understand, and that makes things more unstable, which helps the whole mood I was going for, and the themes.
And writing something with this many characters, as you said there, was that process, how difficult was that process? Were you surrounded by Post-it notes, pieces of paper on your walls like David Warner in The Omen? What was it like for you?
Yeah, no. I always am, especially with these movies, but I'm a big believer in charts and graphs and structure and flow, and with this, I mean, every Marvel film at some point just looks like you're hunting for a serial killer. It always does. And you've got 5 walls of different ideas of how it's gonna play. But it's all in service of how can I get into these, how can I justify spending time with these characters and getting into their hearts.
It's so incredible getting to work with him, because he is so connected to all of these characters' plot lines, everything from their point of view. He can hop around the script, he can hop around the characters. I can come up to him, ask him about pages that were new, that we're going to shoot in a few days, and he's in a completely different world at that time when I selfishly go up to him and interrupt him and ask him, can you explain this to me? And immediately, it doesn't take half a beat for him to know exactly what I'm talking about and him to answer my questions from my character's point of view, even though he's been living in the head of a few other ones that day. And I really, really respected that and appreciated that.
Well, I was basically throwing things out to everybody. I had to be able to take it back as well. Because I was like, what if we did this? That's tomorrow. Yeah. Wouldn't it be cool though? What about this? That was yesterday. Like, you know, we very specifically choreographed all of the magic.
Yeah.
And then you and me and Jennifer White worked on it together. I didn't ever actually tell anybody what we were doing. And it wasn't until late in the process that I started to see, like, you know, post-viz and effects and things and go, this is all totally wrong.
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe I should have mentioned, you know, because I've just sort of, I've got all these things going on, but I'm sometimes not so organized. But we did eventually get it.
Yeah, we did get it.
A lot of my favorite action in the movie is the way you spell cast.
Cool. I liked it too.
And that's something you worked on quite specifically, wasn't it? The movements and the...
Absolutely. I'm pretty sure, Joss, you were writing it and doing Wanda moves at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I was very lucky to have a director who had a very specific idea of how she would move. And it's hard, like, how do you create a movement that is dynamic enough for these sequences, as well as, you know, it's casting spells, like, it's there's no blueprint for that. You make it up. And Joss had a really creative way of moving, and Jenny and I would basically watch him, mirror him, take it into our own special room, and play with that, and play with just as dancers do. You like play with where your gravity is, where's the energy, where's the center of energy, and we would choreograph. He'd say, we need something to be high, low, left, right. You're gonna have a guy coming this way and that way, and so you choreograph for that. But you're trying to create different levels, and you try and make it dynamic. Even it just comes out of like an improv basically, or directly. Joss will have a very specific idea for some moves as well.
Yeah, you have a dance background.
Yeah.
Which was enormously helpful. That, and you have the fingers
I have
that
very
can do that.
long, twitchy fingers.
Yes, Aaron kept looking at us and going, what are you guys doing? How do you do that?
People actually, in interviews, people thought that the twitch was from graphics. And I was like, no, I can do that for you right now. I don't know what that is. Maybe I should figure that one out.
I can't explain it, Mother, but one day this will make me famous.
Daddy, I promise. Let me be an actor.
Who wants to see a clip from the film? There you go. Joss, do you want to set this one up? This is the hammer lifting competition.
Well, you just did.
I know. Maybe a bit more context.
It sadly is Lizzie free because they didn't send us a Lizzie clip. But it's just, and some of you may have seen it. It's a piece of what happens if the Avengers were all hanging out and some of them were drunk.
Let's take a look at the clip, then we have time for a couple of quick questions from you guys. Let's take
Whatever.
Oh, yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Whenever it's like, you're going to be an idiot, he's like, yes!
It's so funny.
Okay, we got time for a couple of quick questions. Put your hands up, and well, there's a lady right over here. If you can get the microphone to her, there should be one. There we go. Thank you very much indeed.
Hi. So I'm not going to say anything. I'm just saying I've seen the movie and I loved it. It was great.
Oh,
And it was really good. And I wanted to say, Elizabeth, I absolutely love the way you played Scarlet Witch in it. I think it's fantastic. And I love the motion that you were talking about as well. It looks amazing on screen.
Thanks.
And I was wondering, you've done a lot of like independent films, smaller films as well. How does it feel like to work on something that is so big and so insane and so intense? And to Joss, I wanted just to say, I hope you enjoy your really nice holiday after this crazy work, because it's an amazing movie and it's insane. So thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. I like my question.
Not a question then. Let's see.
Yeah, well, I've never ever had to work on something like this. Like Godzilla wasn't like any of this for me. I felt like I was making something smaller because I was filming in a house the whole time, basically, except for a couple scenes. First off, it was awesome to play a confident person. That just felt great. But it really requires a different skill to figure this out, and it was intimidating. And I mean, I'm such a fan of the movie, so Aaron and I would be like, okay, well, we have to figure out how we add something to this, because Joss did his job, now we got to do our job. Like, he made it dynamic, now we got to, we got to show up and seem like we know our characters as much as these people do, and some of them been doing it for 4 or 5 movies.
The intense 2-month rehearsal period didn't help.
Yes, and that was really...
There's no rehearsal on any of
But however...
I never get 2 actors at the same time, except for you and Aaron.
Which was great. And Aaron and I, we really worked the same. And since we'd worked with each other before, we would do, like, Skype. We would have meetings. We would... Because we did... By just creating an accent together, you end up talking about everything else. So you try and approach it the way you would any character, just trying to know it inside and out. And then you get there and you're just like completely out of your comfort zone at the same time of being like in awe of the size of something like this, like taking over towns and like just the designers, the amount of cameras that they use at the same time, like cameras that are in helicopters. Like, it's just mind-blowing, the size of this film, the amount of crew that actually work on jobs like this, and you're working with the best costume designers, the best editors, the best sound, the best special effects, and these are all people who are the best at what they do, and it's just amazing to be in that company. It's so lucky, and you get Joss, and he's incredible.
Plus, if you act now, how much you get?
Yeah, and so even though I was terrified, I knew I was in such safe company. And it was also an ensemble piece as opposed to like me on my own.
Is that what they're seeing?
What?
That
that picture?
Yeah, that's what we started with.
That
was the first week of shooting.
Yeah, that was the first week of shooting.
Was the insane climax of the film. So it's like, all this stuff has happened and everything is being destroyed. Good luck.
Yeah.
Here's Mr. Renner. Jeremy, do you have any advice? Yeah. No.
He actually did have some good advice. He did say, and he's the only person who I actually like did an advice talk with, because he and I were paired up like that whole first couple weeks, and I was just like, I can't believe we're like saving the world right now. I don't understand like what that feels like, what that looks like. And he was saying, well, you just have to think about the human story, like something as small as like, I just need to do my job so that I can go home to my family. Like, just think of something small. And then I was thinking, yeah, but my character's trying to save her nation. Like,
but it's a small nation.
It is a small nation, but like, but yeah, so that was a helpful comment.
Yeah.
I mean, a practical one that everyone should realize. I should have realized it, but just him saying it.
No, but it's easy to forget because this is a madhouse, and we do sort of throw you in it. And all of this stuff came very late because they said, okay, so there's been a few schedule changes. Apparently, everyone's having babies. And because, Chris Hemsworth was unavailable because he was having twins. I was like, well, it can't get worse than that. Hey, Scarlett, what's up? So they basically said, okay, we start, at the Italian location, and you have Aaron, Lizzie, and Jeremy.
The end of the movie.
Yeah.
Go.
But also, you have these characters, and I'm like, so I guess these guys have a through line. I'll get back to you on what that is. So everything is constantly shifting under you while we were saying, react to those robots, we'll put them in later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. When I said 2 questions, I meant to say there's a lady here in the front row. And this is the final question, I'm afraid.
No, it's the penultimate question.
The penultimate
Dress
question.
For Success has to be allowed.
Yeah,
to
Dress
ask.
for Success has to ask a question.
Bless you, sir.
I just want to say thank you, Joss. You've been one of the few consistently good influences on my life for the last 17 years, so big thanks to you for that. After working with a big machine like Marvel, what's the best thing that you'll take away from you when you go back to perhaps some of your smaller productions?
You know, work with a smaller machine. No. The weird thing about Marvel is that they're big and they're small. I mean, I basically deal with 2 people in the entire organization most of the time, both of whom are really good storytellers. So it's this sort of mom and pop megastore. It's this weird thing. I think, you know, the thing I take away is work harder, do better. And yeah, obviously, and maybe make a movie that isn't about 17 people, but just maybe, like, I mean, if I made a rom-com, it would be about an orgy. I cannot do anything except ensemble pieces. It's awful. But you know, you sort of, you learn a bunch of lessons, and then you forget all of them. It's like every time you start filming. I actually realized this today. It's like being in a relationship, a new relationship. You're like, well, I'm not going to make the mistakes that I made last time. I'm going to make a bunch of new mistakes and all the mistakes I made last time. It really is like that. It's like you learn it all over again. So hopefully I'll, you know, I think the biggest thing is let's take it down a notch, buddy. You know, so that you can make a film and then rehearse. You can write it, then rehearse it. Rehearsal. That would be interesting. And then shoot it and then edit it in that order, and not be rewriting it last week.
Yeah. Any concrete plans, or are you still at the any concrete plans, or are you still at the sort of slowing down phase?
No concrete. Not even mixing any. Okay. Just gonna sort of, you know, let's sit back and be tired.
Do you know how to do that? Do you know how to not create?
My friends give me 3 days.
Yeah.
But I'll show you all. I'll be a slacker. I
really doubt that.
So 4 days then, basically.
You'll be like on your writer's retreat in a week.
I could slack. You don't know.
Elizabeth, you're going into Civil War, aren't you? Captain America: Civil War.
I am. I guess I'm allowed to talk about that. Yeah. I mean, right after this movie, I did a biopic about Hank Williams with Tom Hiddleston, which is in the Marvel world.
6 degrees of Loki.
Yeah. So that was really great, and that'll come out in fall. And in a couple weeks, I go to Atlanta and start Civil War. Yeah.
And now the last question.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks. I mean, I completely forgot what I wanted to ask anyway because of this. Thank you guys for saying that. Just you've been talking a lot about all the challenges, of course, that this. I mean, you had to face for this. Was there anything for either of you that turned out to be surprisingly, refreshingly easy?
Oh, I want to take this one. Her. I mean, I think I was 4 for 4 with the new cast. I think they were all amazing.
Everyone's great.
But you know, this character means a huge amount to me, and I got to work with yet another of one of the best actresses and movie stars of her generation. I was going to say our generation, and I realized, yes, that's not how that works. But no, I really can't say enough, and I don't know if I ever said it to you, but you are extraordinary, and I was so grateful every day.
Oh, thanks, Josh. That was such a sincere moment.
I love you, always have.
Follow that, Elizabeth. What was easiest for you?
I mean, honestly, the part that I was nervous about is seeing if I could hold my own with those actors. You always, I mean, I think every time you start a job with people you respect, you're always nervous, and I'm sure people can relate to that in any field of work. And yeah, so I felt like, and they're incredibly welcoming and kind people, so they made it easy. Like no one was not welcoming to the new cast members. Everyone was so kind and so generous, and that felt really great. I mean, it's like what everyone wants is to like feel accepted in like a group of people they respect, and that I did feel that, and I'm so thankful for their kindness.
Fantastic. And on that note, that's all the time we have, I'm afraid. But thank you so much for coming, and thanks
Thank
again,
you guys.
Elizabeth Olsen and Josh Whedon. Thank you so much.